Those limbs so clean, or I between, commenced a fornicator. Why am I doing this? I haven't scripted anything, you know what I mean? I don't know how to start. What on earth is this sculpture doing in this park? We're in Central Park. This is one of the first sculptures you see when you walk in from arguably the most popular entrance. This is Thomas More, the Scottish poet. Today we're going to do literary walk. We're going to look at a lot of the sculptures, well, specifically the poets in Central Park. I think it's a great microcosm of the sculptures in the park, what we have, why we have them. We're going to look at why they're there, maybe who's missing, but also just marvel at the stories behind them. If you're new here, my name is Ramka. This is my channel. I'm here to take pictures of every sculpture in Central Park. And I figured I might as well talk about them in the process of it. Like I said, today, we're going to do literary walk. This is Thomas More. He lived from 1779 to 1852. This sculpture was dedicated in 1879. A famous Scottish poet. So I have here a little poem of his. Of the poems I found of all the poets we have today, this is the one I'm least enthused by. Okay, so at the mid-hour of night, written in 1813. At the mid-hour of night, when stars are weeping, I fly to the lone vale we loved, when life shone warm in thine eye. And I think oft, if spirits can steal from the regions of air to revisit past scenes of delight, thou wilt come to me there and tell me our love is remembered even in the sky. Then I sing the wild song 'twas once such a pleasure to hear, when our voices commingling breathed like one on the ear. As echo far off through the vale my said orison rolls, I think, oh my love, 'tis thy voice from the kingdom of souls, faintly answering still the notes that once were so dear. Great. Okay, cool. That's Thomas More. Impeccable real estate. Right by one of the prettiest lakes. That big rock that all the cool kids like to sit on. Back there is famous Apple store. There's obviously sculptures you'll see when you enter here, but I'm going to do that another time. I'm going to do the entire perimeter. That's my little spiel. Now I'm just going to take pictures. I have a Portra 400 loaded in here right now. I was initially thinking of this project as a black and white series, but I happened to stumble upon a decent deal for all this film, and I figured with all the fall colors, you know, with all the, oh my god, I got rated by Diochu. Oh my god, hi Raiders. Biggest rate I've ever gotten. Hell yeah. Okay, well, we've made it to Literary Walk proper. This is the kind of the opening part of it. We got some amazing live music in the background. But the first sculpture you see in Literary Walk is none other than Christopher Columbus? Christopher Columbus is already in the corner of the park on an even bigger sculpture. Why do we need a second one? I don't know. I'm going to talk about Christopher Columbus another time. I'm going to kind of gloss over it today, but I got this great quote. One of the things he's famous for. So this is from 1552. They would cut an Indian's hands and leave them dangling by a shred of skin, and they would test their swords and their manly strength on captured Indians and place bets on the slicing off of heads or cutting of bodies in half with one blow. One cruel captain traveled over many leagues, capturing all of the Indians he could find. Since the Indians would not tell him who their new lord was, he cut off the hands of some and threw others to the dogs, and thus they were torn to pieces. Wow, with a lovely little etching of that taking place. The man, the myth, the legend, Christopher Columbus is here. But for how long? And why here in Literary Walk? I don't know. So here at the bottom of Literary Walk, where you would arrive, this is where the carts would arrive, the carriages, and they would drop off their rich passengers, and then they would walk along Literary Walk all the way to Bethesda Terrace. because this part of the park was designed for the rich folk. This sculpture was dedicated in 1894, which makes it one of the last sculptures to be dedicated here in the area. Across from him is our boy Bill, our boy Willie, William Shakespeare. We're going to go say hey to him right now.
My name is Showtime with the Get Groove Master. I'll keep it real, baby. You know what I mean? I got to keep it real. Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. The pass is in my back, right in my hand. That's right. Kick it back there. Like, get out of there at the pass. I'm moving forward. You can't walk backwards. I'm going to take a break, and I'll be back after these messages. A word from my sponsors, Parks Jet Service. You see them riding around. They riding around.
This is why I would run ads if I could do that, I guess. All right. So, as we have Chrissy over here, we got Willie over here. Initially, when I was first planning this, I was a little grumpy about this guy being here. I was like, how is Bill Shakespeare? Well, obviously Christopher Columbus is a great reason to be grumpy about it. And I was like, and Bill Shakespeare? Not an American, is he? And he's in a very important spot, right at the beginning of Literary Walk. And I thought, well, yeah, everyone loves Will Shakespeare. We even have the Shakespeare Theater, the Shakespeare Garden. Been there, done that. I watched Macbeth recently, again, but this one. Sculpted by John Quincy Adams Ward, proposed in 1864 and dedicated in 1872. Let me tell you about this real quick. Let me tell you about who paid for this thing. You ever heard of the Booth brothers? I think you heard of John Wilkes Booth. Yeah, remember what John Wilkes Booth used to do before he famously assassinated Abraham Lincoln? He was an actor. So were his brothers, and so was his father. So they raised $4,000 towards the funding of this statue. So that money was raised at a benefit performance of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar on November 24th, 1864, performed by the three sons of Junius Brutus Booth at the Winter Garden Theater here in the city. During this one-night-only performance, a fire that was started by Confederate sympathizers who were trying to burn down the entire city in the waning days of the Civil War, a fire broke out behind the theater. What's up?
What's up, guys?
How's it going?
Good.
You got a Leica, that's nice.
Yeah.
I've got a Mamiya.
Mamiya, it's nice as well.
You want to look behind me? Very nice. What's your name?
My name is Vlad.
Vlad? Nice to meet you.
Vladimir.
Nice to meet you, Vladimir.
Nice to meet you.
Take care.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate your time. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, it was
Have a
lovely
great time.
meeting you.
And enjoy this beautiful day.
Yeah, so it's like very rarely things that I walk in here. So I am like,
Yeah. It's
I'm blessed.
Take care.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
God bless.
Nice to meet you.
All right, well, I guess we keep going. Where were we? Right, so a fire broke out in the Winter Garden Theater as the Booth brothers were performing Julius Caesar to raise money for this guy. Thankfully, despite all the panic that ensued, they were able to control the fire, and the performance went on. They finished. Just over 5 months later, John Wilkes Booth would jump up from his balcony yelling, "Sic semper tyrannis," famously then killed Abraham Lincoln, and said, reportedly, "I have done it. The South is avenged." And that's what paid for this sculpture. Kind of crazy how connected it is with our own history like that. Sic semper tyrannis. right. I guess I get some more video shots of it before I move on.
I gotta go though.
You gotta go? Oh no! Okay. Well, it's good to have you.
Yeah.
I brought cookies. These are cookies from IKEA. Here in Literary Walk, this is the first one you'll see after Shakespeare and Columbus. This is Robert Burns, 1796, companion to the 1872 Sir Walter Scott, which we're going to look at is across from us. Poems earned Burns fame in his lifetime, but little money. Blah, 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 blah. He's a national hero, known affectionately as Rabbi. Burns' genius was his poetic use of the rhythms and dialects of everyday speech. Blah, 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 blah. What I like about Robert Burns is he had some special poems. A lot of them are really palatable, kind of nationalistic Scottish poems. Walter Scott is way more nationalistic, but Robert Burns is a lot more poetic and a lot more fun too. In fact, it is widely believed that Robert Burns first came under the censure of the church in 1784, owing to his affair with a servant girl named Elizabeth Peyton. This resulted in the birth of his first child, Elizabeth, or rather, Dear Bob Bess. Now, what a lot of people don't know about Robert Burns nowadays is how horny he was. Well, he called himself the Fornicator. This is from the same year that he was censured by the church in Scotland. And here's this little poem from 1785 called The Fornicator. I can't believe I'm about to read this out in here, out in public. Good old Robert Burns. I'm going to try to do this to the beat of the drum here. It's going to be really hard. You jovial boys. I can't. Ye jovial boys who love the joys, the blissful joys of lovers, and dare avow with dauntless brow whatever the last discovers. I pray, draw near, and you shall hear, and welcome in a frater. I have lately been in quarantine, a proven fornicator. Before the congregation wide, I passed the muster fairly. My handsome Betsy by my side, we gat our ditty rarely. My downcast eye, by chance did spy what made my mouth to water. Those limbs so clean, where I between commenced a fornicator. With rueful face and signs of grace, I paid the buttock higher. The night was dark, and through the park I could not but convoy her. A parting kiss, what could I less? My vows began to scatter. Sweet Betsy fall all de bral, and I'm a fornicator. Good old Robert Burns. How about that? Now this goes on quite a bit. And obviously, Robert Burns is known for many more types of poems, more appropriate poems as well, but I like this one. This one's fun. And I think it captures his character a little better than the ones that get taught in classrooms, so how about that? That's the second Scott so far. And I'm going to turn around and show you Sir Walter Scott, who's also Scottish. I know, I forgot the microphone. I'm sorry. Just talks about where he's from, that he was a Scottish writer and known for celebrating Scottish culture. And it is larger than life, as you can tell. It's huge. It's almost twice the size of the real guy, with his dog by his side, sitting on a rock, whereas Robert is sitting on a stump. Also designed by Sir John Steele, 2 E's, 2 L's. Both Burns and Walter Scott, Sir Walter Scott. This was dedicated in 1872, making it one of the early ones. Commissioned, as the others, Burns and more, by Scottish citizens. I kind of struggled to pick something from Walter Scott because it was all just so nationalistic, very pro-Scotland, very triumphant and nostalgic. There's this book he wrote called Waverley. I haven't read the whole thing. I mean, I should mention, I am not a literary scholar by any means. All of this is comprised from like skim-read research over the course of a couple days. But Waverley seems to be a book about a war that they had with England, a very tragic tale. I don't really know, to be honest with you. But excerpts from Waverley, 1829. So many to curse, so few to pray, and some aloud huzza did cry. They cursed the rebel Scots that day, as they'd been knout, brought up for slaughter, as that way too many to rout. Therefore, alas, dear countrymen, oh never do the like again. To thirst for vengeance, never been your gun nor pa, but with the English ever been and let anger fa. Their boasts and bullying not worth a louse, as our king's the best around the house. 'Tis a good to be sober and douse, to live in peace. For many I see, for being o'er crouse, gets broken face. Very upset about the English invading, very clearly. Very unhappy about the Brits. I noticed later in the book, deep down, there's kind of like an addendum where he has kind of like a personal note. But I'm just going to read this. It's kind of long. And this is just a section, kind of like from the center of this. There is no European nation which, within the course of half a century or little more, has undergone so complete a change as this Kingdom of Scotland. The effects of this insurrection of 1745, the destruction of the patriarchal power of the Highland chiefs, the abolition of the heritable jurisdictions of the lowland nobility and barons, the total eradication of the Jacobite party, which, averse to intermingle with the English or adopt their customs, long continued to pride themselves upon maintaining ancient Scottish manners and customs. The political and economical effects of these changes have been traced by Lord Selkirk with great precision and accuracy. Okay, true. I could try. And like those who drift down the stream of a deep and smooth river, we are not aware of the progress we have made until we fix our eye on the now distant point from which we have been drifted. Such of the present generation as can recollect the last 20 or 25 years of an 18th century. That's good? Okay, good. 18th century will be fully sensible of the truth of this statement, especially if their acquaintance and connections lay among those who in my younger time were facetiously called folks of the old leaven, who still cherished a lingering, though hopeless, attachment to the house of Stuart. Stuart! This race has now almost entirely vanished from the land, and with it, doubtless, I'm really bad at this, much absurd political prejudice, but also many living examples of singular and disinterested attachment from the principles of loyalty which they received from their fathers, and of old Scottish faith, hospitality, worth, and honour. Now, I could see how Walter Scott represents a really important sense of identity for true Scottish nationalists. This is one of those sculptures that makes you wonder, why this and not others? Gotta change the film. So. Yeah, I check my battery levels, make sure everything's going alright. Switch this over. Pops Veronica? Yeah, I bet that was fun. Alright, here we go. Close that up. Wind it up. So here's the newest sculpture. Women's rights pioneers. These are the first sculptures of actual women in Central Park. Sojourner Truth, Susan B. Anthony, and Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Some brand new. Monumental woman. a volunteer nonprofit organization founded in 2014 to create the Women's Rights Pioneers Monument. After securing a prominent location on the park's famed literary walk in 2017, Monumental Woman raised $1.5 million in private funding to commission and endow the sculpture, designed by nationally recognized sculptor Meredith Bregman. The timing of the arrival of this monument coincided with the National Women's Suffrage Centennial of the ratification of the 19th Amendment and the 200th anniversary of the birth of Susan B. Anthony, both celebrated in 2020. This one wasn't on the Wikipedia. We have some interesting pieces here. We have like the Declaration of Sentiments on a sheet over there. We have a purse over here with Women's Rights Convention, a petition for universal suffrage, and free lecture by Sojourner Truth, like a flyer. Oy, oy, oy. All right. Okay. I'm just waiting for you to kick a tree to make the leaves fall. I guess I could do that. The sculpture of Fitz-Greene Halleck. Now this is the only American writer on Literary Walk. In fact, this is the only American writer or poet in the entire park. And even though he's the only one, most people don't even know who he is. At the time that this sculpture was erected, he was huge. He was an icon, a gay icon, a political commentary icon, and a bit of a naughty poet icon as well. In fact, when it was unveiled, 10,000 people came to see it, including President Rutherford Hayes, who had just been elected, who was also popular. I mean, so popular, Mark Twain stumped for him. Mark Twain's not in here. Anyway, 10,000 people came to see him. They destroyed the turf. And Central Park made a rule that that wasn't allowed anymore. They would never allow that many people to gather in Central Park again because it was such a ruckus. So that made me wonder, who was this guy? Like, what made him so interesting to the people of the time? So I pulled up a book of his, Fanny with Other Poems. This was an edition from 1821, but I believe it was written in 1819. So Fanny with Other Poems was like a book with one big prose, one big poem, a long one, and then a bunch of other ones after that. Mostly written by Fitz. There was one written by somebody else as well. But I thought I'd read a passage from Fanny and then an excerpt from one of the later pieces from that book. So Fanny, let's start at the very beginning, the first 3 stanzas. Fanny was younger once than she is now, and prettier, of course. I do not mean to say that there are wrinkles on her brow, yet, to be candid, she is past 18. Perhaps past 20, but the girl is shy about her age, and heaven forbid that I should get myself in trouble by revealing a secret of this sort. I have too long loved pretty women with a poet's feeling, and when a boy in a daydream and in song have knelt me down and worshipped them, alas, they'd never thanked me for it, but let that pass. I've felt full many a heartache in my day at the mere rustling of a muslin gown, and caught some dreadful colds, I blush to say, while shivering in the shade of beauty's frown. They say her smiles are sunbeams, it may be. They say her smiles are sunbeams, it may be, but never a sunbeam would she throw on me. It goes on. It gets kind of kinky. But the other piece I wanted to pull up, that's later in that book, Fanny and Other Poems, is titled this: Walter Bown, Esquire, member of the Council of Appointment of the State of New York at Albany, 1821. So this is addressing Walter Bown. Now what's cool about this is that you'll notice the little asterisks covering up some of the vowels of Walter's name. Now there's a lot of other poems in Fanny that do that as well, and are a lot more angry. It seemed like, we do this nowadays in order for things to be less searchable with the Control F, right? But I think this was back then just a diss, a way to say, hey, I'm naming you, but I'm going to leave some letters out just to show you how I feel about you. So this guy was a senator at the time, senator for New York. This poem goes a little bit like this. This is how it starts. We blame you not, Walter Bown, for a variety of reasons. You're now the talk of half the town, a man of talent and renown, and will be for perhaps 2 seasons. That face of yours has magic in it. Its smile transports us in a minute to wealth and pleasure's sunny bowers, and there is terror in its frown, which like a mower's scythe cuts down our city's loveliest flowers. We therefore do not blame you, sir, whatever our cause of grief may be, and cause enough we have to stir the very stones to mutiny. You've driven from the cash and cares of office, heedless of our prayers, men who have been for many a year to us and to our purses dear, and will be to our heir forever. Our tears, thanks to the snow and rain, have swelled the brook in Maiden Lane into a mountain river. And when you visit us again, leaning at Tammany on your cane, like warrior on his battle blade, you'll mourn the havoc you have made. Now that's a good diss. That's a beautiful diss, and maybe that explains why he was so famous and kind of forgotten, because it's contextual, you know, it's from a time. But that is the only American writer in literary walk. Fitz-Greene Halleck. It's pretty cool that I've learned a little bit about him. Now, if we look at the rest of literary walk, if we look back and we look ahead, there is so much empty space along the wings where these sculptures are. There's so many spots. So many spots available. There's even spots right here. You could even have some over here in these garden spots. That's nice. I'm busy, sorry. Okay, let's see here. We're at Bethesda Terrace. Angel in the Waters. Angel of the Waters, which was erected 1873. This is the first sculpture in all of New York that was designed by a woman, Emma Stebbins. She has another sculpture, actually of Columbus, of all people, in downtown Brooklyn. But this is her famous Angel of the Waters. And from Wikipedia here, Stebbins is best known for Angel of the Waters, which sits atop Bethesda Fountain. Rumors of nepotism surrounded the project because Stebbins' brother was the chairman of Central Park's Committee of Statuary, Fountains, and Architectural Structures. Many believe that he pressured the committee into giving his sister the commission. I'm not surprised that they would balk at supposed nepotism, you know, because of the misogyny of the day. But she was a very talented sculptor who practiced in Rome. And there was actually quite a rich culture there of expatriate sculptors who learned and practiced there. And she was friends with a lot of them. She comes from a family of artists, a rich family. I mean, her parents were bankers. She had, I believe, 8 siblings. Many of them worked in the arts. Let's just talk about this real quick. You know, Stebbins was inspired by the biblical story in which an angel gives the waters of Bethesda healing powers. It is in reference to the Croton Aqueduct, which brought fresh water to the city beginning in 1842. Almost definitely the most famous sculpture in Central Park. And honestly, any rumor of nepotism is really rather irrelevant when you look at it. It's a beautiful sculpture. Here we are, Bethesda Terrace. I'm going to come back here and get some more pictures in morning light when it's a little better lit. She's looking cute. And people are really loving it, and I think you guys are pretty cute too, and I'm loving you guys. Banger stream, thank you. I'm glad you guys could tune in. Does that work? I don't know if that worked. Is that working? Did I get that right? I'm not sure if that worked.